Well, hello, ladies. It's Tuesday, and I wanted to jump in here before our training on Wednesday, which is tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And we're going to be talking about plant-based power swaps. But today, I wanted to come in and talk to you about nutrient density. We know that it's important to ensure that our food that we're eating is quality, right? I talk about this all the time. And sorry, I gotta keep drinking here. So, when we're focusing on food, I'm just trying to think of how I want to say this. When we're focusing on the foods that we're eating, hey Claudia, when we're focusing on the foods that we're eating, it's imperative that we are focusing on those foods that are going to give us the best bang for our buck. Okay, so to speak. And obviously when we're looking at foods that are processed, I mean, most people in this group, most of you in this group, know that we want to limit foods like that, right? Processed foods that are in a package, because those foods are going to contain additives, and those foods are also going to not, if it's in a package, there's other things that need to, chemicals and additives that need to be added to that package so that the food stays fresh, right? So that's why we want to eat as fresh as possible. That's why we want to add more greens as possible. That's why we want to add the foods. We're not saying that we can never eat those foods, but if you want energy, if you want your metabolism to work optimally as you age, if you want to feel better, sleep better, maintain your weight, it's extremely important, okay? So there is what we call nutrient-dense food. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I recommend that you follow him, Fuhrman. I remember reading his book, Eat to Live, many, many, many years ago, and it's been revised since then. I think it was 18 years ago, and it is an amazing, amazing book. It's the basics, and I believe that we need to get back to the basics, and get back to, the foundations of what makes us really healthy. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't go to health 201 or 301, but we really, here in this group, it's about making health a habit. And when we talk about making health a habit, we're talking about the simple things that we're doing every single day and not making it complicated, okay? Does this mean that you shouldn't go deeper, and maybe you're at a place where you need to go deeper and get into like health 401? Absolutely. But you still have to have these down, right? You need to have these principles down. So when we talk about nutrient density, we have to understand that even though a food is considered healthy, it doesn't mean that it has the most nutrient density, okay? And I'm going to actually just kind of talk about a chart here that I have in a moment. But when we look at say calculations, and actually Joel Fuhrman actually has a calculation. It's called the Andy scale. He actually has a scale that he has created to determine the nutrient density of food. So what we want to do as we are women that are aging and we want to feel amazing as we age, we really need to ensure that we are eating the majority from the Andy, or not the Andy scale, but the just nutrient dense foods, okay? And putting more nutrient dense foods in. And this is why, hey Krista, this is why I talk so much about, Celinda, and talk so much about Juice Plus and putting the whole foods in, and even the Tower Garden, because it's about the quality of our food, okay? So I'm just going to share with you here on my scale the nutrient-dense food list, okay? It's based on the Andy scores, which is Dr. Joel Fuhrman's findings, okay? And I'm going to read you something here. So nutrient density is a term that describes a calculation that helps you to see what foods have the most nutrients per calorie. Instead of a food that has empty calories like sugar, nutrient-dense food has calories from micronutrients like vitamins and minerals. this is key. Your body cannot be optimally well if you are not getting the micronutrients, right? If also, you guys have heard me talk about often, absorption is key. If you are not absorbing what you're putting in, then there's a problem, right? Because it's digestion is everything, but absorbing, it takes it a step further, right? Because if you're not absorbing your nutrients from your small intestine into your cells, there's going to be a problem, okay? The nutrient density calculation that we use is the Andy scale created by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. While there are other calculations, this one seems to be the most comprehensive by taking into account fiber, calcium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium. I'm not going to read the whole list here, but basically vitamins and minerals that our body needs to thrive. So if you have a health condition, you are not deficient in whatever medication that you've been given, you are deficient in minerals. You are deficient in the minerals and the vitamins, the phytochemicals, and all of the oh my gosh, the other one that I want to say. Anyways, the phytochemicals that your body requires to work well. Okay, so if you're not getting that, it's just like scurvy. Remember when the sailors had scurvy? They were not deficient in whatever medication they'd be given for scurvy. They were deficient in vitamin C. Okay, so for example, when you're taking the Juice Plus capsules, like the red, the purple, and the green, there is vitamin C in there. A lot of it. Okay, you don't even need to take an additional vitamin C because the vitamin C typically that we're taking on the store shelves are synthetic. Synthetic is made in a lab. Your body does not recognize minerals and vitamins from a lab, right? It recognizes food. Okay, so and we need to make sure that we're getting it from food first, but we know that our soils are depleted and we need to add on what we're not actually, like filling in the gaps, right? Like I've talked about already. So, I mean, we've got B12 and B6 and angiogenesis inhibitors, organosulfides, aromatase inhibitors, resistant starch, resveratrol plus or like this is all of what is actually being taken into account on Dr. Joel Fuhrman's Andy scale. Okay, he's also taken in consideration the ORAC, so oxygen radical absorbance capacity, okay, which is a measure of the antioxidant or radical scavenging capacity of a food. Okay, basically what that means is, you know, when you're stressed, for example, you are going to need more antioxidants because the antioxidants are going to protect you from the oxidation that the stress is going to create in your body. So if you visualize, oh, that's weird light. If you visualize a car and that car is rusting, that's oxidation. When you cut the apple open and you notice that the apple is going brown, that is oxidation. That's happening on the inside of us. And that's what's aging us, right? Because we all know that we were not put on this planet to be here forever. We age and we die. But I can tell you that you can age with, and as long as you're doing what I'm teaching in this group, I mean, it's not just, we just keep living the way that we've always lived. No, we do have to, you know, have the health tools. We do have to take part in the things, say, that I'm teaching here or other things that you're learning elsewhere. We have to do that. We have to invest because otherwise, you know, as you age, like for example, when I was in so I'm 46 now, when I was in high school and I would say into my 20s, I can't remember when I stopped this, but it was, I can't remember when I stopped it. But anyways, I just remember in high school, back in the day, remember when March break would be like beautifully sunny and you could actually suntan? Back in the day, when I was in high school, I remember like in the early 90s, I remember being able to suntan on my deck. That doesn't happen anymore. But I would, because I'm very fair and I'm blonde, this is my natural color now, but I was born blonde. And I remember I would just want to be tanned. And I can tell you that as I've gotten older, into my 40s, I started noticing, I don't have it anymore because I use a lot of essential oils on my skin and inside me. You guys know I've told you about that. I drink a lot of Kangen water, which also helps to eradicate the oxidative stress in your body very, very, very powerfully, even more so than food. And then I also am really focused on the food that I put in my body, but I'm always working on getting better because I have some days where I'm not so good, meaning that I'm not eating garbage because I don't eat garbage. Some days I have to make myself eat because I'm like, you get so busy, right? But that's not good. That is not good because food is our medicine, right? We have to look at it as food is our medicine. We're not eating because we're hungry. You're eating and you're making the choices that you're making with this plant-based food, what we're talking about this month, because that food has the ability to help our cells regenerate into healthy new cells, okay? So, okay, I'm not going to read that there. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you the chart, okay? So this is the chart that goes from most nutrient dense to least nutrient dense, okay? So under most nutrient dense, it is very important that you choose to eat majority of your food coming from most nutrient dense. Now, if you're wondering, well, what about my protein? And we talked about last week how we have lots of protein in plant foods, right? I talked about that. So go back to that. I have it dated up there, so you can go back to the recording. But you can eat greens and get tons of nutrition. Okay, so, well, tons of nutrition, but protein as well, because all the largest animals on the planet, guess what they eat? They eat greens. And so as humans, are eating animals to get the protein because they're the middleman. They're eating the greens to get the protein, but we're eating them. So why not we go and eat more of what they're eating and follow what they're doing, right? So most nutrient-dense food. Does anyone know what the first food is? Or the first few foods? Can anyone guess, those of you watching? Or if you're on replay, in the comments, let me know. I'm having a drink of my antioxidant water with my doTERRA lemon essential oil. Oh no, there's lime in that one actually. Kale is number one. Kale is... Okay, so the chart is at the very top is 1,000. Okay, so they've measured sprouts. Krista, mustard greens, watercress, that's really, sprouts would be up there, but on this list, he actually doesn't have, because mustard greens wouldn't be sprouts. He doesn't actually have sprouts on this. I don't know why, but yeah, that would be another big one as well, for sure. But he has kale as the first one. I love dinosaur kale. The greener, the better. And I like to saute it. I don't necessarily like it raw. And for many people that we don't digest it very well raw anyway, so it's good to saute. So good. Second one is collards, mustard greens, watercress. It's all 1,000. And then Swiss chard is $8.95. Bok choy is $8.65. Spinach is $7.07. We go down to arugula, romaine. Do you notice anything in common here? They are all greens. Hence the reason why I'm sharing about the tower garden, because while my goal eventually is to have a tower garden, one of them is, my first one is greens and the microgreens and herbs, but my second one I'm going to purchase at some point is going to be for flowering plants. So like the tomatoes and the cucumbers and all that. I do want to have another one that's all berries. I can take a picture, Krista, because this is actually in a PDF. I have a plant-based 30-day program, and this is one of the things that I put as kind of like a bonus in there. So I can actually take a picture, and I'll post that. Anyway, so the list goes from iceberg lettuce, interesting enough, is $127. There's blueberries, zucchini, artichoke, sweet potato. Okay, so now... And then there's another list that has some here. Flax seeds is 103. So let's go to the least nutrient dense on his list. Okay, so the least nutrient dense is salmon, is at the top of the list as being 34. eggs are 31. Even though eggs are like they call the perfect food, we have to be careful with eggs because eggs, especially people have higher inflammation within their bodies, eating eggs, especially in the morning, will actually create more inflammation. It's because of the arachidonic acid that's within the egg. If somebody's more inflammatory, it's not going to be a good thing. And many times, anyone that's in my metabolic balance programming, if because we go with blood work, right? We take the blood work, and then they have a meal plan that's made based on doctor's recommendations through metabolic balance. And eggs, typically for many people, if there's not as high inflammation, they'll have to eat it with starch, like white potatoes. So for me, when I do it every year, I do the vegetarian one because there's no vegan, and they'll be like, I'll have maybe one egg a week, but I don't have it with any, there's no starches. I don't have to have it with anything because my inflammation is lower. Anyway, so eggs, the other thing with eggs, you have to be careful, and everyone's in a different place. So right now, if you're eating eggs, as long as you're eating better quality, I say start there, right? Everyone's in a different place. So you may not be ready to give eggs up because if somebody has a health condition, because most health conditions, I'd say 99% of them, 99.9% of them, go back to viruses that are living in the body. Like, Ebola, EBV, it all goes back to viruses. We need to kill the viruses, but guess what the eggs do? The eggs actually feed bacteria within the body. So for some people, they hear that, they're like, okay, and they're still not ready to give it up. But eggs are, you just, again, like I always teach, we start with where we're at, but we always have to be going forward, right? We always have to, if you're dealing with something in your body, then we need to take a look at that, because we can't be doing the same thing like as a maintenance. We can't be working on maintenance when you're dealing with something. Your body needs to shift into that healing state, and we need to use food to do that, right? So because when your body's is shifting into healing, then what happens is you have to do things different. You have to do things different, or you're going to be in the same spot in 6 months and a year. So milk, 1% milk is 31. So these are all on the least nutrient dense: walnuts, bananas, whole wheat bread, almonds, avocado, brown rice, white potato, low fat, plain yogurt, cashews, chicken breast, ground beef, cheese, feta cheese, French fries, white pasta, cheddar cheese, apple juice, olive oil, white bread, vanilla ice cream, corn chips, and cola. Now I know cola's number one. I know that you're like, well, of course cola would be there, but why would avocado be on there? It's because it doesn't mean you can't eat avocado. I love avocado. Doesn't mean you can't eat it, but understand that it's based on his findings of everything he's taken into account, right? So I always say have a wide variety, but make sure that you're getting tons and tons and tons of greens. If you ever feel overwhelmed or frustrated, just know that you need to take a step back. And if any of this has overwhelmed you, for example, then you need to just step back and say, okay, where do I need to begin now that works for me? And I would say just be adding in more dark leafy greens. Keep it at that. If you're eating eggs, because I talked about eggs, if you're eating eggs, don't worry about it. Add more greens. Just focus on adding more greens. Keep it simple, okay? Add more green of anything. Anytime, most people that I'm taking through the metabolic balance program, I would say one client I talked to yesterday, she has basically all of her foods were all green foods because the body wants to be more alkaline. Okay, so any questions, let me know. I hope that was my goal is to educate, and I never want you to feel, any of you listening by recording, I never want you to feel overwhelmed. You start with where you're at. You just got to keep going forward. You've got to, any challenge that we have, anything, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're not in the same place as you were last time. You've got to improve each time, right? Because if we are not growing, guess what? What's happening is we're dying. Okay, so if we're not growing, we are dying, right? So you need to grow. So that's my share today. And tomorrow I will be on at 11 o'clock with our regular live training, and that is on plant-based swaps. So I'm going to be in my kitchen, and I'm going to be sharing some of the stuff in my kitchen. I like these kind of lives because, well, they're fun. So have an amazing day, ladies. I hope that was helpful. And please tag me below if you're listening by replay, #replay, and let me know questions. And did anything here jump out? And how are you going to use this to move forward? Have an awesome day, ladies. Bye-bye.